Hey, Jasmine here, and welcome to another book review. I am a huge mystery fan. Any story that keeps me in suspense and makes me think is usually a win for me, which is why I was pretty excited to read this next one, Dark Corners by Megan Golden. As usual, before I say a word about the book, I'm going to read the plot description. Skip this part if you don't want to watch me read from a screen. Terrence Bailey is about to be released from prison for breaking and entering, though investigations have long suspected him in the murders of 6 women. As his freedom approaches, Bailey gets a surprise visit from Madison Logan, a hot young influencer with a huge social media following. Hours later, Madison disappears, and police suspect she's been kidnapped. Or worse, is Madison's disappearance connected to her visit to Bailey? Why was she visiting him in the first place? When they hit a wall in the investigation, the FBI reluctantly asks for Rachel's help in finding the missing influencer. Madison seems only to exist on social media. She has no family, no friends, and other than in her posts, most people have never seen her. Who is she, really? Using a fake Instagram account, Rachel Crowell goes undercover to BuzzCon, a popular influencer conference where she discovers a world of fierce rivalry that may have turned lethal. When police find the body of a woman with the tattoo of a snake eating its tail, the FBI must consider a chilling possibility. Bailey has an accomplice on the outside with a dangerous obsession with influencers, including Rachel Crowell herself. Suddenly a target of a monster hiding in plain sight, Rachel is forced to confront the very real dangers that lurk in the dark corners of the internet. First, something I didn't know when I read this was that Dark Corners is actually book 2 of a series. I know from reading it myself that you don't need to read book 1 first to be able to follow along. I was never confused, and honestly, I had no idea I was reading the second book of the series until I went to get the plot description for this video and saw the words Rachel Crowell 2 above the title. I got my copy from my Book of the Month subscription, and my TBR list is so backed up that if I saw it was a sequel at some point, I had long forgotten about that. The lucky thing though about investigative fiction is that although it's the same main character, it's a new mystery with new suspects, and I can confidently say it doesn't tie into book 1. The book follows Rachel Crowell, an investigative journalist turned true crime podcast star, as she tries to find out what happened to the missing influencer Madison Logan. Something I really enjoyed about this book was that it felt realistic. Someone in law enforcement might beg to differ, but the thing is, I don't care if a book ends up being true to police protocol as long as it's logical. Actually, I would prefer a story that doesn't tell people exactly what law enforcement uses to find criminals. I've never liked the idea of ending up with a guidebook on what a criminal should avoid. So if it's made up protocol, even better. Anyway, I'm getting off topic. The book has something which I noticed is really common in crime thrillers lately, and that is to have chapters that follow the killer. From the beginning, it's made clear that the FBI believes Terrence Bailey is responsible for the deaths of the woman, but they think he didn't act alone, which is why a few of the chapters follow that accomplice and make it very clear he's a killer. It was told in a way that leaves the question of how is this man connected to Terrence Bailey and the missing influencer. In the story, Rachel Crowell is by no means law enforcement. Yes, she was an investigative journalist, but unless you have some kind of background in law enforcement, it seems unlikely an FBI agent would call her for help, which is what I thought this book handled really well. Because despite what the description says, the FBI does not ask for help, not with the case at least. Not too much. Rachel is there for one reason. Her name was linked to the man in prison and the missing influencer who visited him. But once they feel she isn't needed, they want her gone. The thing I loved about Rachel was that she was never the annoying character I'm used to reading in crime books. The one that says that really stupid line I wish didn't exist. I can take care of myself. I die a little inside every time a female character says that, especially when it's followed by the immediate proof that she in fact cannot take care of herself. When the FBI tries to send her home, she doesn't immediately go into dangerous situations. Granted, any involvement in the case is putting herself in danger, but she plays it smart. She doesn't try to pretend that she's a detective, but she uses her skills to learn more about the missing pieces by going undercover. I'm a stickler for logic in a story. I need a clear explanation on how point A got to point B, and was happy when by the end of the book everything made absolute sense. I wasn't left with questions or plot holes, and I never wish for more. On to characters and fan casting. I kind of just settled on the first person that popped into my head with every character, which is why I think most of them are older than the characters. Rachel Crowell is a podcaster known for her amazing investigative work as well as her alluring voice. I had pictured Rachel McAdams as the podcaster who goes undercover as an influencer. Maybe it's because how clever she is on the Sherlock Holmes movies, but I really like the idea of her playing a character like Rachel Crowell. There is one FBI agent who she communicates and works with throughout the story, and that is Joe Martinez. For him, from the first line, I had imagined Pedro Pascal, and by the end of it, I wasn't mad at my choice. Gruff FBI agent who hardly ever smiles seems right for him. Terrence Bailey is the 27-year-old who was put in prison 6 years before. He is described as 40 pounds heavier than he was when he was sentenced, and mostly muscle. He's someone who was in foster care and had a rough life. When all I had was his age and suspected serial killer, I pictured Zachary Montgomery. Zachary Montgomery. Thomas McCroy is the rideshare driver with clear psychopathic tendencies, which strengthened all the safety rules I already had for myself to try and avoid being kidnapped and murdered. It's mentioned he's older, but I wasn't given his age until the very end. I was imagining Michael Shannon for most of the story, but turns out he is a few years too young, but pretty close. The missing influencer, Madison Logan, well, she's a blonde in her 20s who has made a living with her travel and lifestyle vlog. I was in the middle of a rewatch of This Is Us, so I just let myself see Madison from there. But if we're looking at a blonde girl in her 20s with a ton of happy energy in her videos, it would probably be someone like Britt Robertson or Samantha Henratty, depending on the vibe they would be going for. But I never put too much thought into imagining that character with all the mystery surrounding her. Mystery is something I love, but I've always felt like once you know what happens, it's never the same. I guess the same can be said about any genre, but with crime thrillers where the story is 100% about the mystery, it's a little tough to reread, which is why my rating for this book is 3 stars, because I loved it, but I doubt I would reread it again. Now, if it turned into a mini-series, I would probably rewatch that once or twice. You can find my other book reviews on my blog/website. The link is in the video description. It's been a while since I've had a 5-star read for me, and has me wondering what kind of book that will end up being. If you want to know where you can buy Dark Corners, you can also find that in the description. The next book I'm reading is an indie novel called The Unknown Sun by Cheryl S. Mackey. It's a fantasy book and the first of the series, so I'm really hoping I get hooked. You'll see that video next Friday. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, bye!